Jamie Marshall, second AD. We're shooting the party tonight, scene 22, Armand's Hacienda party. We're going to talk you through it. We have 482 background working tonight. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the wardrobe department. We split it up into two halves, the male section, female section. Getting ready about 200 females and about close to 300 males tonight. Then the next stage is hair and makeup. As you can see with the hair and makeup tent, the right-hand side is makeup, the left-hand side is hair, and we've got about 50 hair and makeup artists working today. The hair department applying moustaches, sideburns, hair pieces. This is about 4 hours worth of work today. And every single person at the party goes through this tent. Whether they just walk through and get okay, but about 80% of them will sit in the chair for 15 to 20 minutes.
So now all these groups should just spread more.
Okay. Now, tell this guy here, that's too many. Too many. Let's take what we've got here, take them to the kitchen right now. How are you doing with your footman, Eduardo, for the rehearsal?
Hold it there, in the corridor, literally diagonally.
Yeah, this party scene is crucial in terms of story, where Zorro meets the competition, but also in terms of the size. It's not the most number of extras, but they're all made up to look wonderful, so that's time-consuming and difficult.
See by the steps, it's very thin to the left, to the
yeah,
left of the steps this side.
Yep, so camera left. Yeah, that's one area we're still working on. You can take 50% of this group, and Stacey needs them deep, okay? Okay. Because everyone's waiting on me right now. Where'd he go? He was standing right there. Quite challenging, because of the language barrier. But it's all come together. We've been fitting these extras for 2 weeks. Fitting, rehearsing, carriages, drivers. I mean, there's a whole mixture of departments involved.
Chatting. I want them enjoying themselves. I want the movement, everything else. Please concentrate.
Well, Martin's talking to them right now, telling them about the scene, introducing himself. They've been placed. They go back to their positions. We'll start rehearsing.
Buenos tardes! This is obviously a party, okay? They are the aristocracy, the elite. They're the people who have been invited to the party of a French count who has recently arrived from Spain.
Dancers, raise your hands. Dancers, please.
Bailarines, manos arriba, bailarines.
Okay. Can you all now move back, please? Keep moving back.
Tough. Difficult. Me. That's how I can describe trying to get through that stuff. We could have done it as an interior, but there was something very dramatic about having this party and this ball and this dance outside in front of this hacienda. And so one of the things that Phil Mayhew did, which was very clever, was to set up a huge lighting rig, which enabled you to shoot in any direction, and just with a little bit of fill light you could fill it. So the look of it and every angle and every way we shot it was set to start with.
Being at the end of the 19th century, there would have been no electricity to work on. So one has to create the illusion that all of the light that is behind me, all of the light that lights all the guests at this party, comes from either candlelight or gas lamp. So it presented quite a challenge to create this illusion of candlelight, at the same time cover everybody in every position that they could possibly be. And if the camera pans up now, you'll see that one of the solutions I had was to use a new invention, which is an inflatable balloon, where lights are actually put inside a balloon structure which is filled with helium. And these have been suspended from a huge construction crane, which I can raise and lower to suit the shot.
Let me just see what's happening.
The one thing, of course, we didn't take into account was the rain. And we'd get everybody out there with their beautiful hair and wigs and makeup, and then it would start raining again. So I think we had like 5 nights. We ended up going to 6 or 7 or 8 just to try and get through the work. But the first night that it rained, my God, it just... You've got on video, it just flooded down. We got flooded, we had trouble getting the extras out, with massive damage done to the set.
sitting it out right now because our weather cover set, we're in the same situation. Got a parlor set, which is 2 scenes in the movie take place in, because Martin agreed that if the weather was bad, he would shoot in that set. We've got the construction department, set dressing, painting, it's all going on to try and get that set ready. I'm going to walk back there in half an hour and see how they're doing. Can you call me at 10:30? Give me an update. Because I'm gonna start and move over here.
And I've got a great crew trying to get that set finished. It's now nearly 10:30 and it's not finished, but they're hanging drapes while we're trying to put carpets over wet marble floors. Maybe we can get in a bit later. Meanwhile, as you can see, it's still raining.
I think it's about plan H or something. And we're finally trying to get this stuff ready, as you can see. People are building around us as we do it.
Well, art department, very well done.
From the art department, well job, boys. Painters, well done. I hope Armand fires his decorators. Last night, as you know, it rained for 3 hours and we all sat on our asses for 3 hours. It's very frustrating all that. And we're hoping tonight, well, it doesn't look too bad actually. We might get away with it tonight. But we start the dance sequence itself tonight, which I'm looking forward to.
You shouldn't drink so much on an empty stomach.
Perhaps you should wear lipstick if you're gonna act like my mother.
Cut it. Once more.
First of all, I didn't know that when I came to this party that my ex-wife at this point in the story was going to be here. So it taken completely under surprise, or surprise, and so he doesn't know how to act. He just loses it completely, and he's just doing what you see that he's doing right now.
Since when do politics bore you?
Since when did you start caring what I think?
That scene was really fun to write. Those moments where you have to basically write a screwball comedy and then layer it in with kind of real emotional pain. I mean, for a writer, that it doesn't get any better than that.
Plus, we knew early on that we wanted to see Antonio really jealous.
In Spain.
We knew we wanted to really milk the idea of this, you know, hot-blooded hero just really acting.
He does it so well.
And he gets away with a lot in that scene because he's just had such a slap in the face of discovering the mother of his child on the arm of another man. How horrifying. And so going through that, you know, we knew that we could really push it and that he would really have a great time just being as terrible and yet as sympathetic as he could be.
Oh, God, let's get out of this place. I can handle her.
Yeah, the other thing is it's very tough to make a jealous man endearing. You know, it's tough, you know, and he really, like...
Yeah, he's great at it.
I think the comedy comes from the fact that he is so willing to make himself look like a fool that your heart breaks for him and you laugh with him too, but you're never fully laughing at him.
With dreams beyond belief.
You know, play Zorro to do this, just to dance with a priest. I can't believe it. All the women envy me right now. I'm holding his hand, you know.
So we had on the script a wonderful dance scene to create where a very important dialogue scene and confrontation would take place within the dance sequence. So when we weren't working, I'd work with the choreographer on that and the local dancers who did a great job, and we had to just plot where these, you know, pieces of dialogue would come in, and then interchanging me dancing with Armand and then dancing with Antonio, and it was a big, you know, a big thing for us to do with such little time, I must say, too.
I had to do a lot of alterations, a lot of refining and stuff, which Catherine, to be honest, stepped in and did a lot of that, because she is a terrific dancer and has been in many musicals. So, I mean, she understands it, you know, absolutely perfectly.
The beauty of the scene, the way it was written, was that all this dialogue is intermixed with dancing and trying to pretend that everything's fine and we're just having a nice dance, and then me and Alejandro go and then it's fine. And so I give my two penneth worth, from my dance training, and also knowing the scene and where I was, the direction of the scene was going.
As my character is drunk, it's almost, I know basically the structure of the whole entire scene, but I try to don't know it completely so I can fail for real. So the other actors are taking care of me and just pulling me in the scene, taking me out of the scene.
The whole time we were doing dance lessons at drama school, I was in the park. So, I've avoided it successfully up until this moment. Finally, the dance police caught up with me, so I have to. But it's quite fun. The most important thing is the scene. So as soon as the camera isn't on my feet, they're all over the place, As long as I keep going forward, I'm happy.
The other challenge, too, with him is that he's the guy who kind of comes in and becomes the real threat to Zorro. He takes Elena away. So the challenge from a screenwriting point of view was to figure out how to make him kind of a human, because the audience, immediately wants to boo him the minute he comes on screen. And that's how we came to develop the idea that there's a backstory between them and that they went to school together and that he's very much in love with her, and he genuinely is very much in love with her.
I care for you too much to subject you to an evening of forced smiles, Elena.
But it worked out so well, and for me, I think it's going to be one of the favorite parts of the movie for me, because you still sense the love and the passion for, Alejandro and Elena, but then you see the distance between them growing.
Who's been looking after Joaquin while her mother spends her nights out? I have not been spending my nights out. I haven't even told Joaquin.
Aggressive, tragic in some ways. I mean, yes, very, and it sort of boils over at the end into a sort of yelling match between them both. So it was a very tricky one to do, in every respect.
Congratulations, Your Highness!
My priorities were to make everything I could as real as possible. So when you see like all the aqueduct stuff, all the swinging is like it's all done for real. All the rooftop stuff is all done for real. We did use trampolines in certain places, but everything you see is actually real people doing real stunts.
Well, Martin's movies, as you know, are big action sequences. He's known for those. This movie is not a cartoon. This movie is, true swashbuckling adventure with a whole realm and a wow factor for stunts.
They got more complex this time, which they would naturally do, because somehow, the bar's always being raised with other movies. But yes, we did up the ante, and yes, the action is, on the whole, much heightened from, say, the first one.
It became pretty obvious to me when I first got the schedules that this was going to be probably one of the busiest films I've ever worked on, and every single day of shooting there is a stunt going on, whether it be on first unit or most of the stunts are taking place on second unit.
We have approached the whole film, and certainly our action sequences, with exciting real stunts in mind, using the skill of the stuntman performing these stunts with no wires. They're no CG characters flying through the air. They're real stunt guys putting their life on the line, jumping tall buildings, as it were.
Originally it was going to be Zorro chases the wagon through the streets on a horse, and we changed it to going to the roof, but we had to keep the energy and the speed up, so we had these custom-built wagons so we could really go faster and sort of smash them into the side of things and not worry about wheels coming off and all that. And we got a driver down from Canada who's a sort of world champion who was fantastic, and the speed he could actually get this wagon going meant the horses behind him could be going faster. So everything you see when the wagon is going fast, he is generally going fast. There's no camera trickery speeding it up and just trying to make him look like he was going fast. He's generally going very fast.
We talked about the excitement of this sequence, and I talked with Gary about trying to make this wagon chase like a car chase, in the way we approached it and that sort of dynamic.
It was just a battering ram, just like the front of a tank, and clearing the way for them. So they never had a hair off of them. And you got to think of that stuff before you go. You don't just protect your stuntman, you protect your livestock too. I mean, they had one with a lot of fire. And anytime you mix with fire and animals, you got to really, really be on the ball and take care of all your safety measures.
It just gets really hot. So everything that we're wearing today is just prepared for fire, you know, even the hat, everything. And so we are secure. We got good stunt people, coordination, and so it's when you work with people like that, it's secure.
Actually, we don't have to push. He wants to get involved in them, so it's quite nice for us to get that motivation from him. You know, obviously he does want to do everything. You know, he wants to do all the big stunts. He wants to jump off the roofs.
Antonio's one of those guys you have to stop doing stuff sometimes because he just wants to sort of do it all. The truth is he's a better swordsman than any of the stuntmen, to be honest. I mean, you know, perhaps one or two that are his equal. But he's someone who just gives it everything. And I mean, he's been walking around lately like the walking wounded, you know, limping, and his fingers get cut. And, you know, he's gone through a hell of a time actually doing it.
These movies are made with blood, money, and sweat.
And sometimes you just have to say, Antonio, stop it, we'll double it, you know, but he doesn't want to. He wants to do it himself. And it'll show.
Yes, in these movies there is always a risk, you know. Relative, but risky. Especially when you start just pushing the limits of yourself, you know.
2, 1, action!
Antonio, he's never half on. He's full on every day. He'll take on absolutely anything. And he's one of the most enjoyable actors to work with. But he inhabits Zorro. I can't imagine anybody else ever being Zorro.
Yes, it's okay. But for the first one, Antonio, stay on the boards. And 3, 2, 1, action!
I try to do as much as I can, but that is from it's almost an egotistical point of view of it. I just love to go to the movie theater and don't feel embarrassed. I just feel embarrassed if I see and stand doing too many things.
3, 2, 1, action! And now!
You send me back to Wales.
One of my sort of main priorities when I was doing the fights is to always try and put a bit of humour in there, because the first film was very humorous and we obviously had to make sure we done the same on this one. So each time we done a fight, particularly say like the alley fight or the winery fight, they are the humorous ones.
Who are you? The real question, Senora de la Vega, is who are you?
In this film, she's got so much more to do than what she did in the first one. In the first film, she was more the sort of damsel in distress. In this one, she's actually sort of 50% of the hero in this. So she's had to learn like 3 big fights. Coming from a dancing background, that obviously helps because she's very up to choreography and learning moves very quickly. No matter what your rehearsals are, when you come to the shooting day, actors will always give it that extra 20%. So you sort of do have to calculate that, you know, especially when they're getting into the, you know, each actor during some part of the fight, there's always one bit that he does better than everything else, and he goes from sort of 60 mile an hour to 100 mile an hour in those split seconds. So you've just sort of got to keep an eye on them to make sure that they hopefully keep the same speed.
Well, anytime you get in running 2 horses together, like on a polo field, if both of those actors, they come at each other wide open charge, it only takes that much over one way or the other variation, you're going to have a hell of a wreck.
I actually kind of like these scenes. I mean, sometimes it gets a little bit freaky, but I kind of like that freaky thing too. You know, it's good to assume certain risks.
The problem is with these horses, is that they learn the scene, and you have to trick them because they learn the word action, and as soon as they hear the word action, you know, they're off. But you can't just trick them by not saying action, because they learn all the words associated with the take coming up. Even people going quiet, you can see the ears prick up. So the danger is stopping them going. That's the most difficult thing when you're trying to stay still. Once they've learned that a bit of running's involved, then it's impossible to stop them. So that's the big battle.
In the polo field scene, Antonio and Rufus do all the riding other than the 2 times when the stunt guys fall off the horses. Obviously, we couldn't let them do that because of the hard landing they was going to have.
You know, there's actors who say, I insist on doing all my stunts. Well, good luck. Me? No. I insist on someone else doing my stunts, thank you very much. Because I'd rather live. I'd rather live. Yeah, no, I think I'll leave it at that.
Very complex scene. There's a combination of models, of blue screen, of the horse, of the real train. It involves all the elements.
So this fight takes place from virtually the back of the train, and it covers 5 cars till it eventually gets to the front. So we have obviously Zorro and Aman fighting inside their car. We've got Elena and Farrokh fighting inside their car. Zorro and Aman move along the train across the top of it, across the top of the engine. The whole end fight ends up on the very front of this, and the difficult part of this one is Elena also turns up on this, so we've got the 3 main characters all turning up on the front, having this fight scene.
The first incarnation of the train was kind of ridiculous. You know, it had all sorts of extraordinary stuff in it, which we had to cut down on. But like all of those things, when you start to work on it and cut it down, it's actually better for it. And so what I did was completely rejig all the storyboards, redrew a lot of them, adjusted the story, and as a result of that, you know, that's what we've gone with.
The first thing we discovered is that there aren't any trains of the period, and there's certainly no steam trains running in Mexico. So what we had to do was to find a train that we could use and try and make it look as though it was running. And so the first decision that I made was that the best thing to do is to get a diesel to push and to pull the train. Then we had to find a locomotive that looked right. And the closest we came to was one at the Pueblo Train Museum that hasn't worked in 40 or 50 years. We were able to structure an arrangement where we could take hold of the train and use it for the film. And so working with museum representatives, we altered the train, the locomotive, to look as though it was of the period, or close to the period. And then special effects then added smoke and steam and everything else. And I think when you see the end result, it'll look like a locomotive that's working.
Obviously the trains, it's a high risk thing because it's 400 tons of moving metal that doesn't stop if something goes wrong. You know, we blocked through the whole of the fight on the outside to see where the danger areas were, where we could attach wires and where it is actually better off not to have a wire, because it's okay having a wire that stops you from falling to the floor, but what could happen is you could fall off the side and the wire can actually pull you back into the wheels. So most of the times when they're on the tender, they're actually not on wires, and on the side, they're generally moving free. The only time we put them on wires is when they're on the cow catcher at the front.
It's a complicated sequence. It's the finale of the movie. We've got a horse jumping onto the roof of a moving train, about to be crushed by a tunnel. In the area that we filmed in Mexico, it was all flat. There were no tunnels, so that was a problem. And then the train has to go on these forks, you know, just missing people at the last moment. So for those reasons, we needed a better model.
And Richard Taylor at Weta Workshop has built the model of the train. It's superb. I can't tell the difference when I look at it on screen. And I see it sort of going through. It's simply, it looks exactly like the real train, and it runs like the real train.
Because the principal photography is focused so heavily on the train, any difference will show up immediately. So we would like to think that it is a blueprint, right down to the rust marks on the metal, the scratches on the wheels, and the fine lettering on little bits of the bogies and so on. So a lot of effort's been exerted in trying to get it right.
There's a huge amount of detail gone into this train. All the little bits of piping, we've tried to keep it original as possible, so all the piping that you see is actually copper pipe. All our little nuts and washers and everything else are exactly scale. All this has been textured. This has been turned out of a piece of timber and then textured up just to look like a piece of cast iron.
The single biggest challenge in creating the train has been resolving how to move the train, but ultimately we took a winch, exactly like what works on a ski lift, and a continual loop winch, and we locked it on with a drivetrain into the lock diff of an automatic car. Then there's all sorts of other issues, like we've got to make the locomotive give out huge amounts of steam. And just building the track, we extruded all of the track out of aluminium, mounting them on urethane sleepers, and all of these things were brought together ultimately in the location where we were able to landscape it all into a believable scene from Mexico.
And hopefully the end result will be, everybody will believe it's a steam train really working under steam that does everything we want it to do and blows up and destroys itself at the end.
Normally when you're building miniatures for any form of destruction, you'd build a minimum of 5 goes at it, because it's the most difficult work that you ultimately do really in film with effects work, because all of our timing, all of our action, all of the pyrotechnics have to detonate and work within that sequence. And so there's a lot of complexity to figure out with it. The pyrotechnics department have gone and carefully routed slots all through the walls of every one of the carriages and then fitted their det cord, as you can see here, actually into the panel work so that it will shatter the woodwork. And now they're building all of their little pots into the inside of each of the carriages where the fuel will ultimately be sat. You've got to think of the explosion in the terms of a Zorro movie, because if you try and think of it too realistically, it won't be what Martin wants.
We're trying to create an explosion like is in the director's mind. So that was about a 6-week build, that carriage, and I thought I might take this back for the guys that built it, just as a little memento, but I think we got more testing. So. We have a cable, or in fact 2 cables, attached to the locomotive and also right back to the back carriage, running down the track, passing down underground to 2 pulleys on this container, to 2 more pulleys, and then all the way down to the back of that vehicle. And on cue, the vehicle accelerates away at 40 kilometres an hour, pulling the train at 40 kilometres an hour along the track. The point of these tests are to try and choreograph the right roll of the locomotive. The problem is, of course, that a locomotive is successful because all of its weight is stacked low around the wheels to stop it rolling over, and we've built a realistic weighted locomotive base. We've now got to get that huge mass of weight to actually tip. we're almost ready to go. There's a few little electronics issues they're trying to wheedle through, and hopefully that doesn't catch us out, but we're obviously optimistic. We've got all 7 cameras now set up, hidden away in bunkers and in these big boxes and buried in the ground and such like. The set's beautifully dressed, and we're about to let the thing roll. And obviously at this point in any of these explosive shoots, it's a little bit nervy, but I don't think we could have tried harder and done more testing to have got it right, so keep our fingers crossed.
But you've got to do it again for that gap.
Yeah.
No question. That tender has to go. So don't be downhearted. Explosion's very good. It's excellent. And all the shrapnel is great. What I'd like to do tomorrow, while we're setting...
Take 2.
Right?
Yes, take 2.
Yes, please, definitely. Yes, please.
Take 2.
Yeah, we've turned it around in a day from being a completely burning husk. We did have other units that we could stick together. The pyro guys have rebuilt their boxes, and they're firing really beautifully. We are doing some additions by getting more steam into the boiler.
The first time we shot it, the boiler didn't blow, so they're putting a CO2 canister inside the boiler, scoring it so when the train tips over, the steam will come out the various cracks in the boiler. The issue is it's a very powerful CO2 canister, and it may blow the whole boiler. Cross your fingers, it'll work. We only get 2 takes.
So is there time constraints? Because they're obviously...
Yes, we've got to shoot. We've got to shoot in 45 minutes, and otherwise the light goes. So we're rushing, and let's hope we pull it off. If we don't have another train.
Over an 85.
Okay, stand by please, everyone.
Hopefully there will be...
Arming, thank you, Paul.
Hello.
All comes down to 1 second, doesn't it, after 6 months' work.
Here we go. And roll cameras.
Keep rolling, boys.
Keep rolling.
Keep your POVs.
Keep rolling. Keep rolling.
I think it was good. I thought it looked beautiful. But, we'll go and report to the boss.
And actually lands perfectly in frame, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And look at the hits there.
Okay.
Hello.
That's great.
Look at the bell line at the front too.
That's fantastic.
Worth doing that again.
What's that?
Once more on that.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Next.
That's brilliant, that one.
I'm glad we reshot the game, aren't you?
Yeah, look at that. Even get you over the flight in the engine too.
Well done, Weta. Well done. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy, and therefore I'm very, very happy.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. Absolute sensation. Yeah, I mean, brilliant. Weather Workshop and their special effects boys, the whole crew have done a brilliant job. And it's a great climax to the movie. I'm absolutely thrilled. Really knocked out.
One of the things I like about movies like this is that a lot of our work is completely invisible.
Yeah, so I'd thicken it up a little bit here.
Martin's main focus is total reality. He doesn't want anything to look digital or CG, artificial, and we certainly want to have people go into the movie and enjoy it and not get taken out of it by an over-the-top effect shot. You shouldn't notice any of the effect shots. They should just be seamless. There are actually a number of very challenging scenes, but one of the more difficult tasks for us is a sequence called Cortez Ranch, where barn is set on fire. We shot with as much practical fire as possible, and then we had to augment that fire with extra pieces of flame, which meant cutting and pasting flames from other parts of the shot or from other scenes into the shots that we're working with, but making it look very convincing without going over the top. And it's really hard work. Most fire composites tend to look a little fake, and it's usually very obvious where it's been done, and for us the key thing was believability.
This scene that I'm going to show you over here has a baby in it, so we can understand why there was no fire. And what the director wanted was to have fire all around the baby. Then the next thing I did was I added smoke. And then we contacted people from our CGI department and asked them to create just some debris. The scene ended up looking like this. Just by adding that interactive light, the fire, the smoke, you just feel the danger involved.
Yeah, it's always a challenge. It's always a challenge to make something look believable and to be real and to translate a sense of danger and excitement. On this shot, the first thing we had to do was remove the trainer's hand and take that off. And next, what I did was I added fire. You can see back here all along the back wall is all fire. Lots of interactive lighting on this post and on the horse, making it look very warm and very hot and particularly uncomfortable.
The problem with filming the train sequence is that the train itself was out of a museum in Mexico. It was not able to be self-propelled, so whenever you see the train moving, there's always without exception, a diesel shunter either pushing it or pulling it. And obviously you've got quite a few shots where you see the whole train, which means that that shunter has got to be removed. There's like a helicopter shot where you actually see the full length of the train travelling through the desert. The helicopter runs right over it, and removing the locomotive on a shot like that was very difficult. I don't think anybody will ever realise that that train is not self-motivated. There's a sequence at the end of the film where the hero train crashes and blows up, and obviously because it was a museum piece we couldn't do that. So we took a decision to have a model built by Weta Workshops down in Wellington, New Zealand, and they built a 1/5 scale locomotive with carriages and a certain amount of environment, and we ended up going down to get one shot and shot 8 or 9. It was such a good model and worked out so well that we've used it a lot more than we expected. And what you'll see here is the blue screen material of the model train. And what we've done is we've separated out all the elements we shot there, and we've combined it with Mexican landscape that ties into earlier footage of the real train. The model's so good that I don't think you can really tell which bit is model and which bit is real. Every now and again, you know, the characters are actually CG characters, sometimes for safety, but often more because it's an enhancement of a sequence, or we've found ourselves with a shot we need a character in. I use a 3D scanning process whenever I do a movie. I like to get a full 3D representation of key actors and any other key props, animals, things like that. What it means is that we've always got up our sleeves the 3D version of whatever it is that we might need. And for instance, with the enhanced use of the model train, we've had to add characters to that on some shots. A movie like this, where our work is hopefully seamless and unnoticeable, gives me a lot of pleasure. You know, people, when they look at the things we've done, they're like, oh wow, I didn't realise. And there's a lot of that in this film, and it is the kind of work I really enjoy.
it feels right, you know. It's 7 years since the first one. A long time for a sequel to evolve, 7 years after the original. And a lot of that for me, I don't know how Antonio feels, but for me was getting the right script and making a movie that would be equal or supreme to the first one. And the script is fun, it's complex in its layers. It has all the elements of the tongue-in-cheek that we loved about the first movie, and it holds. The script stands for itself, and I've seen some footage, and it just is magical.
I found all the elements that we needed to make a good movie. Basically, we have the epic was all around the script. We got the possibility of doing comedy too, which for me is absolutely important for this type of movies. And very well dialogued, the whole entire script, and very balanced. That's what I found.
I think it's an action, romantic action adventure. I hope with a real heart to the story, as I think the first one was. I think this has got the heart. I think it's got great action sequences, but more importantly, it's a very good story.
I lose the girl this time. I'm not going to reveal under what circumstances, but that's actually what makes Zorro to go down and hit the bottom of his own personal life again.
I need to know where the hell you're living in sync with the evil count!
Certainly one of the main characters is Joaquin, who plays the son, named after Antonio's brother in the first episode.
No. And the casting of that character, of Joaquin, was so important. And I think the casting director and Martin have done a fantastic job, because we have found a little gem, because he has this fantastic natural quality where he's not acting, he's just being.
The whole film's much more complex than the last one, to be honest. Much more complex, and their fight sequences are more involved in terms of the sword play. There's more of them.
So what we are trying just to do is just to make them very rich in all the movements and provide them with style. For me, that is almost as important as it could be speed or the aggression. I think that the character has to be very stylish.
3, 2, 1, action!
But with the schedule that we have, and first unit, second unit, unless Antonio and I are actually physically doing an acting scene together, we don't actually see each other. We've got different plot lines for some of the movies. So I'm working with Armand Rufus' character. He's off with the second unit with his horse, doing very dangerous things that he shouldn't really be doing, but he does because he loves it.
I try to do as much as I can, but that is it's almost an egotistical point of view of it. I just love to go to the movie theater and don't feel embarrassed. I just feel embarrassed if I see and stand doing too many things.
I actually kind of like these scenes. I mean, sometimes it gets a little bit freaky, but I kind of like that freaky thing too.
Well, the priorities are simply to make it a better film than the first one. That's what it is.
And it's also going back and revisiting that world, those characters, the legend of Zorro, and it was 7 years on. Where are they now? And it's a lot of fun. And we would never have embarked on a sequel if we didn't think it would be as good, as magical as the first. And I think we may be just about topping it, if I could be so bold to say.